Welcome. This week, we're going to go over lessons 85 through 88. If you watched the recording for last week, I started off by going over one of three phrases that can demotivate students in a math class. It's an article by Rachel Furman. And so last week, we discussed about not using the term, "This is so easy." Well, this week, I would like to address the term, "You're so smart." And because I want to make sure I am sharing the right information, I'm going to read this for you, just part of it. Positive praise is a huge part of my approach to teaching and classroom management. This goes on to say that rather than praising students for their intelligence, praise them for their hard work, for their determination, for their attention to detail, for their communication skills, for their ability to work with others. When considering how to offer praise, make sure that whatever you are praising is something that any student in the room feels capable of replicating. And I think that's so true in families. We definitely want to praise them. But remember, our children are very unique. Some excel in some areas and some don't excel as well in other areas. We want to encourage them overall. That's the biggest goal, the biggest key. And it also helps, I think, with their relationship with one another. So just be wise, be discerning. I'm not saying you don't want to, I don't want to tell you how to praise them. I don't feel that everybody deserves a trophy. I think, we need to acknowledge that we have strengths and weaknesses, but we as parents and we as teachers, we need to be aware of the words we're using and how they will affect our children. So this last week was nice. You got to start using the regular name of numbers. I hope it's going well. You also worked with adding one. Well, this week we're going to have a big focus on counting by twos. But before we get started, let's see what materials will be needed. You're going to need your abacus, the worksheets, a dry erase board, your tiles, a crayon. You only need one crayon. Let the child pick. Your math card game book, and these are optional. One is the dot cards, which is found in the appendix, and is same with the 100 chart. And I'll talk more about those when we get to the lesson. Lesson 85, using the commutative property. I don't know about y'all, but using that word commutative, I really struggle with. So please forgive me if I say it wrong. In the warm-up, the third activity talks about having the child using their imaginary abacus. I'm going to say this now. I may say it again. I don't want to keep like, oh my gosh, she says this all the time. If your child is unable to do this using an imaginary abacus, let them use their abacus. Always start off trying on the imaginary abacus. And if you see that they're struggling, give them the abacus and then put in the first number, but then see if they could figure it out moving the beads in their mind with the second number to see if they could find the answer. And if not, then do the whole thing on the abacus. Every child's in a different place. Every child has different abilities. Do what you need to do with your children. You'll know. Now, in the objectives and the title, it talks about the commutative property, but we're not going to use that term with the children. It's not the term we want them to understand, it's the concept. So basically, they're going to learn that 3 plus 5 is the same as 5 plus 3 using different approaches. And the approaches isn't like to prove you're right, as it says for the teacher on the second page, but rather it exposes them to different ways. So hopefully it will clarify their understanding. One way might work great for one child, but the other way could work even better. This is one of the things I love about Right Start. It doesn't just give you one way. It shows you other ways. And I love that. I remember being in school, and if I didn't understand something, my teacher's like, well, just keep practicing it. You'll understand it. Very rarely could my teacher explain it in a different way, which now I look back and I wonder, well, did they really understand it themselves? Seems like if you could understand it better, you could explain it differently. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. And I love the fact that our children are learning this young, that there are other ways, other strategies, and it just, I don't know, just makes learning math a little bit better. Being shown several representations or several strategies is just a benefit for your child and even for yourself. Because I don't know about y'all, I learned so much when I was teaching my children using Right Start because I knew how to do things. I didn't always understand why. And all of a sudden now, oh, this makes so much sense. Oh, I get it now. I'm seeing the patterns. It's exciting. It's exciting that your children don't have to go through what I went through and wait until you're in your 40s and 50s to get it. They're getting it now. And hopefully you, if you don't have that understanding, you are going to learn right along with them. Lesson 86, counting objects by two. Or should I say two? No, I shouldn't. You're going to be using your tiles in this lesson, and the children are going to be putting in and counting them by twos. In the explanation, I just want to point out it says that using objects rather than the abacus can be a little bit harder for children. It might take them a little bit more time to grasp that concept and to kind of get a rhythm going. On the second page, there's an activity about reviewing ordinal counting. Ordinal counting really reinforces where we get third for 13 and fifth for 15 or 50 because it's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and so on. The game is A14 in your math card game book, and it calls for either using the abacus or a 100 chart. I think it's more of a game using the 100 chart than just using your abacus. And some kids may still need to use their abacus, but then they like to use the 100 chart. So this is something that I picked up. It's pretty inexpensive. We also have an appendix page of the 100 chart. It's a little bit smaller. You're going to need some basic number cards. I forgot to add that on the material chart. Yes, you'll need some basic number cards. This is also where the dot cards can come in handy, just to have them out so your children can see, because they're going to be counting by twos or counting by one. So the whole point of this is they're going to use the basic number cards, including zero. Zero is considered an even number. They're going to flip the card over. If it's an odd number, they move one. If it's an even number, they're going to move two spaces. The goal is to be the first person to reach 30. Lesson 88, working with twos. As you can see this week, the big focus is twos. I probably should have pointed out in the previous lesson, but when you're working with the number chart, this is where your child's going to be exposed to seeing number nines like upside down sixes, where before we had a circle and a line. Now it has that curve on it, as you can see. So it looks like a six. So it looks like a six, but turned around. Just know that some of you may have children who may be a little bit confused at first. Just explain to them it's still a nine. Now they'll be using the 100 chart that's in their worksheet. And this is where they're going to need a crayon because they're going to color the twos, counting by twos, the even numbers. The whole purpose of this lesson is for the child to see the pattern when you're counting by twos. Some children are going to see it quicker than others. They may not count the whole thing by twos. Once they realize the pattern, they just may color in the whole column, as you see on that second page. It's okay if they discover the pattern and complete it without needing to count it all. That's the point of this lesson, to see the pattern. I think it's also neat. It's not included in this lesson, but ask if they see, what do they notice with the numbers that aren't even numbers? What do they end with? That first column, they're all ones, and then they're all threes, and all fives, and all sevens. I don't know. I just think those things are kind of neat. And then in the conclusion, I like it because it's really helping them to see that pattern, that all the ones that are colored or circled, because they can circle it or underline it if they want. I think coloring it really helps to see the pattern a lot better. And they don't necessarily have to color it in solid, but at least give it some coloring. It really makes it pop out. Last lesson for the week, lesson 88, adding twos. There is a great explanation in the section for you to read on how a child will progress through entering addition problems on the abacus. They're going to start off entering both numbers on the abacus. Then they'll evolve to where they're entering one of the numbers on the abacus. Now here it says the first number is imaginary. It might be the second number. I don't know. Children are different. It's easier for me to enter the first number and then to use the second number in my imagination. Thirdly, they're going to enter, like they're going to use their finger as if they're entering the bead, but they're not really moving the beads. They're doing a physical moving with their finger. I don't know how to explain this. They're doing a moving with their finger of imaginary beads. So like I see 6, I'm going to move 6. But I'm not really moving 6 beads, right? I'm just using my finger to do it in my imagination. And then I'm going to move 6 more beads. I should be able to see the quantity in my mind. And then finally and lastly, they just do it all mentally. They can visualize it in their minds. Now, if you want to see this in action, you should pull up a video of the kids who use the abacus in Asia, and not the kind of abacus we use. They learn to use this kind of abacus. But the thing is, when you watch them and they have these really huge long numbers, you can see their fingers moving, but they're not touching an abacus. It's all done in their mind, and they're just going to town, and they're able to give you the answer. So that might be something neat you could show your kids, because it's really fascinating. I probably should have mentioned that you could have used in the materials your part whole circle set. Here it's implying that you're going to draw it on the drawing board, which you may enjoy doing better. I don't know, but just know you got that option. And in this section, they're wanting you to have the child explain to you how he gets his answer or her answer. This is so key, so critical. In order to be able to understand, we should be able to verbally explain what we did. But for the average child, if they're understanding what they're doing, they should be able to verbally tell it back to you. And this is such a key concept, a key part of Right Start is always asking them, how did you get your answer? Can you explain to me what you did? Because if they can, and you can walk through their thought process, you know they're understanding. So my youngest son, I would give him and his brother a double-digit problem. This was when we were in level B, and they would both get the answer. Then I would ask them, how did you figure it out? And my older son, he figured it out with usually one of the strategies that he's learned. My younger son, on the other hand, oh my gosh, some of the ways that he got it figured out seemed so convoluted to me. But guess what? He understood what he was doing. He got his answer quickly. How am I supposed to go back and tell him, oh, son, that's not the way you should do it? Because he got it. And I could tell he got it when he could explain it to me. So encourage your children. That's why we ask them to explain back to us what they're doing. Because when they can, it shows understanding. We're also going to be working with helping your child visualize in these lessons. The section on the second page, the visualization, is that we're getting them to practice. Remember, and it says in the notes to the side also, if your child needs to use the abacus, let them use the abacus. I'm sorry if you guys get tired of hearing me say that, but it's okay. At some point, they should be able to do it without the abacus. I don't know when. You may not know when. Well, you don't know when, right? The abacus will not become a crutch, but some children take a little bit longer before they can do the mental part. Just a heads up, next week, you're going to need the geometric solids. And I'm only telling you this now because some of you, if you got the Super Saver kit, these solids did not come in the lesson. These geometric solids are used the most in level A. They're used through all the levels, but definitely the most in level A. So if you don't have them, look at getting some, or maybe you have other materials around your house that could fit those. So go look, see what they are, because it's like a cylinder and a sphere and a triangle, you know, like a pyramid, and then a triangular prism. So go look, you may have something you can use in its place. Or maybe there's something online where you can make them out of paper, construction paper or something. I don't know. But I do know it's really good to have them. You're going to use them at least 9 times in this level. We're done. Another week completed. Lots of working with twos on this week. Lots of working. But guess what? Next week, they're going to have a little bit of what I call a brain break. So persevere through this week. Enjoy playing the game with your child. Know that you could play the game on other days because we don't have games scheduled for all the lessons. So if they need reinforcement of odds and evens, play the game A14 up to 30. All right, so join me next week as we go over lessons 89 through 92. Until then.